Hi, I'm Connie Whitman, your host, and you're listening to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. So my motivational quote is by Zig Ziglar. He's one of my all-time favorite people that has walked this earth. And Zig says, the more you complain about your problems, the more problems you're going to have to complain about. Now, do you wake up in the morning to an overcrowded to-do list between running the house, vet appointments, car maintenance, family time, cooking, cleaning, and oh yes, your job? Life can be a challenge, and that's to say the least. Now, do you ever stop to ask yourself why? Do you think about what all of this daily routine adds up to and what you're actually working for? Now, what if you found your why? Would you change anything or perhaps everything in how you're living your life today? Well, I'm just very pleased to have my guest today, Divya Parekh, and she's here to help us slow down, breathe, and discover some strategies to help us find our why and meaning in life while being impactful every day. Now, having this answer can make your to-do list hopefully easier and even more joyful to accomplish. Now, Divya is an in-demand motivational speaker, a leading business relationship and leadership coach, and an Amazon best-selling author. Her new bestseller is called The Entrepreneur's Garden: 9 Essential Relationships to Cultivate a Wildly Successful Business. This book serves as the foundation for many leaders in business and other organizations. She's also had 8 international #1 best-selling books out there. Now, Divya has guided many entrepreneurs, CEOs, and management personnel into realizing their goals and reaching their next level of accomplishment. Now, she accomplishes this through her individual coaching sessions, leadership talks, and workshops. So, Divya, thank you so much for coming on the show again, and I'm always excited for our conversations.
Thank you, Connie, for having me on your show. I'm always excited to be on your show as well.
We have a lot to talk about today because that why is really important. So let's make that our first question. Why is it so important to have the right why in our life?
You know, you asked such a beautiful question, Connie. It's really important to have a why, first of all, and then it's even more critical to have the right why. And let's look upon that. Why is it so important? So one of the first things to know is a lot of people will say, oh, do what you love. Now, there could be several things. So for example, if you're a doctor and now you would love to be an astronaut, is that your true why? So that's why it's really important to know the right why. What is it that drives your life? What is it that makes you spring out of the bed every single morning and say, yes, I'm alive, I'm happy, and I'm joyful. And then this why is the fuel that's going to keep your car running even in the face of obstacles. It could be, in traffic jam, if you want to consider life being sometimes traffic, sometimes cruising through. It carries you through every single thing. So when I talk about the why, it is the why of your life, not just the why of your business. And that's what's called the right why. And now if you have the right why, so for example, I'll share a story of my client. My client came to me and, I help people write their books as part of the business coaching because it's really important to be marketing yourself all the time. And I know a lot of people run away from that word. Okay. So as part of one of the marketing tools, books is one of the best tools. And I love it because, you're birthing your dream. So she came to me and she really wanted to write it, but she was going through a divorce, a lot of hard time and hardships in her life. And she said, after she had signed up, we had gone through 3 months. She had written a few chapters. Divya, I can't do it. And I said, okay, let's take a look at it. However, I'm going to invite you to challenge yourself as to what is your real why. And she's like, oh, I want to help people. I'm like, are you sure that you want to help people? And we kind of walked through it and we said that, okay. We walked through the process to find out, how do you find your real why? And she said, I really want to help people. So then I asked her to challenge herself to look at her decision again. was stopping the book in midstream the right decision for her. She sat down and she said that I was fearful. Same thing goes back to what you mentioned, Connie, about having those fears, right? And about talking about those problems, that if you talk about the problems are going to grow. And what we did was, she knew a little girl, in her teens, and she knew that this was her client and that's what kept her going. So we printed out the pictures of this girl and she had them in her car. She had them right by her bedside, on her mirror, on her refrigerator. And every single time she wanted to give up, she'd look into the girl of that eye and remember that this is what would keep her going. So having that right why helped her write the book, because she knew that her book was going to help this girl. And it did.
And what's funny? Isn't that like a person, that specific person being her why at that moment, right? Our whys, I think, can change over time, right? As our life stages change and our businesses change or our positions change. Isn't that an interesting why, though? We all think that the why is our family, success, whatever that means to you, money, again, whatever that means to you. So finding the right why at that particular time in your life is really, really critical. And that was a great story, Divya, to let us understand that the why isn't always so obvious. And the interesting thing, when you started the story and you said her why was helping people, that's such a broad why, right? And that's a pretty big one. And really, Divya, don't we all, at the end of the day, don't we all want to help, the world, help our peers, help our family, whatever it might be, that we do want to come from a helpful place. So for you to help her zero into that why, that was not what I was expecting at the end of the story. So very, very interesting and a great example. Now, does choosing that right why, again, in any particular time in our life, is that important for us to create that greater impact as well? Like, are they connected, the why and the impact?
Oh, absolutely. So for example, we'll go back to my client's story, that here she was going through a very, very tough time in her life. Here she was totally devastated. And yet she kept on going. So there was an impact at two different levels. One was an impact on a personal level, where because she had the why, she was able to deal with the what, and the how kept on showing up. The how was like that, to write a book for this girl, and she wrote it from the heart. And because she wrote it from the heart, her book, did really well, and she received so many reviews, and she received so many people touching her and saying that this book touched her hearts and it made a difference. So just by looking at that, when you're making an impact at a personal level, when you're so connected with your why, you'll make an impact at personal level as well as make an impact on others.
Was that her expectation when she started writing the book? It truly was for this one, her avatar, if you will. Was that really one person? And then, of course, because it's from the heart, and I think it's a genuine kind of effort, that it impacts, multiple people is what ends up happening. Do you see that frequently with your clients?
Oh, yes. I see it so frequently with the clients, especially if they're really connected with their why, because what happens is when you're really connected with your why, that passion comes through and that authenticity comes through. And guess what? In today's day and age, where we have just kind of become so much about social media, we're going, oh, I got so many likes, I'm so thrilled about it. And you don't know if the person who liked your post or whatever they liked, whether they really meant it or it was just click, 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 click.
It's true.
So that's the power of true why, because you know authentically, deep down that yes, you're making a difference. Yes, you know deep down that this is the promise that you're making to somebody. This is the promise you're making it to yourself. So there's a lot to be said, because when we bring the purpose creates the passion. Purpose is your why. Purpose is creating your passion, and then out of that passion comes the power. I'm not talking about the force. I'm not talking about using physical force or developing like mental power or anything like that. I'm talking about this impactful, meaningful power that touches other people's hearts.
Now, with all the noise and distractions, and you mentioned social media, that's one of many, right? That we have all this noise and distraction happening every day. How do we get that message out to the masses? What have you found for your clients that typically what works?
So, that's a great question, Connie. So typically what works is that first of all, you gotta have a clear and compelling message. And then secondly, you gotta have that unprecedented platform for marketing. People think, marketing is, I have a website, I've got a logo designed, I have got all my colors, my brand colors, and I'm done. You're not done, folks. So logo and colors, that's just one teeny tiny part of branding. The key is what I've found is that having that branding that makes you stand out, that makes you give that promise to your target market. And it's again like, taking the target market down to your ideal client. Mm-hmm. When you do that, when you have the reputation, when you are coming from a place of authenticity, when you're coming from a place of intention to serve, what happens is that this becomes a tool, that becomes your brand story, that becomes your brand message. So for example, all of my anthologies that I do, the profits from those books are going to kiva.org. And Kiva is something, it's a microfinancing loan. And now that becomes my brand story. That, okay, what is my brand story? If I were to describe it in few words, I would say, make your message a movement. And so what is happening is, impact-wise, we are reaching worldwide to so many women entrepreneurs where, yes, for us, those dollars may not have that much value, but, in some of the countries, especially when you look at how much do they get converted into, like sometimes a dollar may be equal to 80 of their currency or 70 of their currency or 50 of their currency, we are able to make a difference. So you're building that brand story and brand message. So that is the first thing. Then the second thing what comes along is that having that platform. And when we talk about the platform, it's just not your website, just not your logo, just not the blog. It's about sitting down and really understanding who your avatar is, understanding your industry, understanding the trends. Because whether we like it or not like it, things are rapidly changing. The technology is rapidly changing, and even Facebook algorithms, you look at LinkedIn, everything changes, like Google changes their algorithms like at the drop of hat. How do you survive in all this? So the key is to have systems that will be predictable and that will be consistent. So it again goes back, look at your situation, where you're at in your business, what is your why, who is your avatar, what is your industry, what are the trends, and based on that, you create marketing systems. So for example, in my case, right, I have a podcast. I write books. I write the right book, so to speak. I will also go on people's podcasts, just like yourself. Mm-hmm. I get on some of the Facebook Live, some of the TV shows. I'm part of the summits. I am part of doing webinars. I'm also being featured on magazine spreads. I am contributing to Forbes. So basically, like seeing what really works, but that does not mean that I'm spending hours and hours together on everything. I'm seeing that I'm looking at what is it that I want, what is my why, and which platforms are going to serve me the best. And based on that, I customize the strategy. And that's what I do for my clients as well.
Now, you mentioned a movement, which I think is important, and we see a lot of movements, right? We have the Me Too movement, and they seem to gain momentum exponentially and in a really short period of time. So beyond that branding and beyond that passion and that clear message, what are other ways that we can create that movement, especially if it's something for, the United States, of course, but maybe even for the global community? How do we do that?
So for the global community, going back to like creating those systems, the marketing platform, creating unprecedented marketing platform that are built of systems that will give you predictable and consistent results. So for example, I'll just kind of share that, I know that a lot of my target market is reading Forbes. I know that Forbes has a really big brand behind it. So now when I contribute to Forbes, not only it's elevating me as an industry expert, but I am reaching the masses. So this is like one little way of making the movement. And one of the key things is connecting with the influencers. Again, the right influencers. So for example, let's say if I'm a leadership coach and now I go and connect with the weight loss influencer. And now the weight loss influencer says, hey, you know what? Read Divya's entrepreneurial book, or read Divya's leadership book, read Divya's blah, 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 this book. But is that audience going to connect with me? No, because they're not my right audience. So it's really important to understand that audience and see where they're hanging out. Now, if I connect with somebody so for example, Brian Tracy has endorsed me. I'm part of him. And now if I tag him and I'm connecting with other people and I'm tagging them, and then I'm saying that, this is what has come about as far as the leadership goes, then what's going to happen is now you're in front of the right audience. And when you're in front of the right audience, what's going to happen is that your message is organically going to resonate with them. And when they organically resonate with you, what they do is they start sharing your stuff. So for example, I'll share with you. It's just amazing, Connie. So many times I'll write an article in Forbes and then it has been shared in multiple cities by multiple publications, on their social media. Just recently, somebody reached out to me through email and said, Divya, as a content writer, I really like this article and I've shared it in my group. So yes, there may be only 300 people in that group, but you know what? You're getting those eyeballs. So that's how it becomes a movement. And it's also about the relationship, like I mentioned, about relationship with your audience, relationship with yourself, and relationship with the influencers.
So I have another question. So you mentioned Brian Tracy, who's, he's amazing. And you mentioned Forbes, which everybody knows Forbes. How did you get connected to those influencers, right? Before, you had, because once you have one of those influencers, I would think it would snowball because now you're relevant, you're known, you're accepted by an industry leader or by someone who has a huge following. So how did you break into actually that Forbes, Brian Tracy, whatever? What was your first connection, I guess? That's the question.
Oh, gosh, that's a long story. So basically, again, it goes back to building relationships. So it's always about give, 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 give. Give to get. I say that. You just can't go and say that, hey, Brian, can you endorse my book? No, I was following him. I built that relationship with him. I was investing in his products because he is phenomenal and I learned
Amazing.
So much. Part of his Facebook group, giving that diligence that's needed. So it took several years for me to figure out, how it can be done. Now Forbes, similarly, somebody recommended me that, this would be a good person. So, but it takes time to build those relationships. So it took me a long time to do it, Connie. But now I can help my clients shorten the distance,
Sure.
The how and the what, but the time it takes to build relationships, that is needed because you just can't it's human beings going from liking somebody to going to knowing somebody and going to the trust factor that do I want to put my name to this person? Absolutely. Is this person, do I want to, here's the thing, if you don't want to put the name to that person because it may be pulling your brand down, so it's really important to first of all be that true authentic leader. Because if you're not that true authentic leader, then people don't want to put their name next to you. They don't want to be pulled down by you. So it's a mix of different things, but the key is going and getting a coach or getting a mentor who is where you want to be, because they've traveled that road, they have fallen down, they have picked themselves up, and they have done what it needs to do, what needs to happen to reach where you want to reach. And so some things I'll say that, when the how is easy, it's so much easier. You're cutting short, like, what took me 5 to 6 years now may only take you 5 to 6 months. Yeah. What took me hours together to figure out if these strategies that have been figured out. So for example, like I mentioned that, figuring out your why, simple why, right? Like people think that the why is like what you do in your business. No, it's about your whole life. Just simple techniques like, print it out, print out your avatar's picture and put it everywhere. So those are the little techniques, and the tools and strategies that get your journey accelerated, and you finish probably in 1/10 of the time what your mentor or coach did.
Yeah, and that your lifetime of experience figuring this out as an entrepreneur, you can fast track other people because you're gonna help them. These roadblocks that come up, you're already in. You know how to anticipate and remove them before they even become a roadblock, a stumbling block, because you've lived through it. It's funny. I was just creating a program for a not-for-profit organization, Susan G. Komen, up here in Jersey. And we're going to talk about time management, really productivity. And one of the things I'm creating, in the manual and the handouts for them to work from was not their why, but how can we look inward to create that change outwardly. And one of the recommendations is always have someone that you can reach out to that's maybe 10 years ahead of where you are in your career, in your life, because they've been down the road that you're currently traveling. So if you talk to that person who's a decade ahead of you, they might be able to minimize or reduce or even get rid of some of the roadblocks that we're facing in our career, our life stage right now. So it's the same thing that you do for your clients, because you've been down that entrepreneurial path. You've been down becoming an author and publishing and getting the following and becoming an influencer and all of those things, that you can fast track them. That just made so much sense. Divya, are there different levels when you're growing that influential kind of path, like you said, that people will endorse you now because you have that reputation, that you won't tarnish my branding, etc., or that you'll recommend folks because they won't tarnish yours? Did you go through different levels of being an influencer?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. And here's the thing, like so many people say that, oh, you know what, I want to get on Oprah's show. Oh, I want to get on ABC. I want to get on CBS. Oh, I want to be on iHeart. Oh, I want to be on Forbes. So the key thing is, it's again personalizing it. And when we talk about levels, that's such a great question, Connie. It's to start out where you're at. Because I'm not saying that do not dream big. I say dream big, but with a touch of realism. Because when you put that little lens of reality on that dream, that what's possible, what's not possible. So for example, like now I might say, oh, you know what, I love space, I'm going to be an astronaut. But you know what, I'm a late Gen X. There's no way that I'll be able to train and be able to go to space and be an astronaut in this lifetime. So I can say that, oh, you know what, I'm going to go chase my dream. And then if I'm not able to fulfill it, kind of get depressed and be getting in the mode of victim. So it's really important to see things objectively. And now what happens is that's why, when you have a level. So for example, you want to be a keynote speaker. I'll just kind of give a very,
sure.
Or simple, like you want to be a book writer. Let's just take like speaker or book writer. Let's start with the book writer. You want to be a really good book writer. You have never written a piece. So either you go with someone who knows the process, who has done it before, and then they can help you. So it doesn't mean that you cannot do it. If you do not have the experience, it doesn't mean you cannot do it, but you need somebody who has done it before to help you through it. Or if you don't need somebody's help, what you can do is you can get started out small. You can say that, okay, you know what? I am going to start writing for some local meetup groups. I'll just help somebody write some newsletters. I will start a newsletter of my own. I will start writing with blogs on my website. So that's, I call about different levels, is that, do it strategically. The key is to do it the right way. And if you don't do it the right way, you could be doing the same level for 20 years. So yes, there is level, but then again, with the right strategy, you can definitely accelerate it.
And scale it up. I just had a guest a couple of weeks ago, James Clear. He just wrote Atomic Habits, brilliant book. Brilliant young man. I don't even know that he's 30 years old. He's just brilliant. And he started a blog. I think he was in his early 20s after he had he was injured in baseball, and how he pushed himself through college, and he shares just a very personal story. And he started a blog about how do you really change a habit. And now I think his followers are well into the millions. I mean, he's a brilliant young man as well. But in his story in the book, he even says, I started, one person was following me, then 10 people following me, and he hit different break points. And now he's, the NFL has hired him, the MLB has hired him. I was teasing him because he didn't have the NHL. My kids are hockey players, so I was teasing him a little bit. And so he's now a very high influencer, but he shares that story, and just really over the past decade, I would say, because he's a young man, was he able to scale that. And it started literally with a blog. So again, I think if you know your why, and he did know his why. He's a very clear vision young man, as well as he articulates and writes well. So he had a lot of innate skills, but that ability to scale it, I think, comes back to that authenticity, basic skill level, right? And having that passion that ignite people to follow you or want to follow you. And then, like you said, you have a guide, which is, I know what you do, what I do, right? We guide people to help them fast track that success so they're not stumbling and getting frustrated, every day. And that, that goes back to what we started with Zig Ziglar's, quote that I started with. People who find themselves complaining a lot, you find more things to complain about versus trying to do what things that you're telling us to do, Divya, right? That creation component of being authentic and finding the avatar and strategizing with someone like yourself. All of these things are much better use of our time than sitting back and complaining, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And think about it. This is how I look at it. If you're sitting and complaining, oh gosh, today it's overcast. Oh, it's been raining. So what you're doing is, whenever you complain, that's the attitude you're giving it to yourself.
Absolutely.
That's the perspective you are wearing. And when you wear that kind of a perspective, then everything just kind of seems dismal. So instead of that, like you would say, okay, it's raining, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get my house cleaned. Or guess what? I'm going to go ahead and sit if I am not going to be able to go out, I'm just going to go ahead and prioritize, and I'm going to go ahead and organize all my paperwork. I'm just going to go finish up the mail. So that's awesome that I'm not spending my valuable time that I could enjoy outside to getting the work done. So it's so much in the perspective and what lens do you wear to look at the situation and to look at the world.
Absolutely. And the reality is, when you think negatively, you're literally attracting that negativity. So, you start spiraling downwards, you spiral downwards a whole lot faster, and reverse it, like just what we're talking about today, finding my why, that passion. And when we can ignite that in ourselves, we spiral upwards, and the momentum can become really quite fast, and we can elevate ourselves at a quicker level than we often think. So I think you give such clear, we're almost out of time, but Divya, you give such clear steps, right? Finding that system. Sometimes people are listening and they go, well, what's the system? Well, it's different for everybody, right? I'm sure everybody that you coach and work with it's different. So finding a coach, whether it's you or someone else that resonates with them, I think it's almost like having a speed pass, right? To move more quickly through this whole process, to create whatever their why is and implement that why in the how and all of that. So you've given and the story you started with, and then how you've helped your clients get those movements, how you've done it yourself, Forbes magazine, and these, Brian Tracy, another one, by being present when and active within their community, so that they start to see not only that you're putting crap out there, like you don't respond, oh, that's a great post, but not add any value. If that's a great post, and with my clients, I have done XYZ. So all of a sudden people start saying, oh, I like her ideas. Whenever she shares a post, it's something that resonates with me. That's really what you're talking about, right?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. It's about providing value. Ultimately,
Always.
it comes down, a lot of times people talk about, oh, your unique selling proposition, but I say unique value proposition. What are you providing to your folks? Now, that folks can be influencers, that can be your friends, that can be your family, that can be your cheerleaders who are cheering you on.
Sure.
Are you providing them unique value to solve their problems? Are you providing value to resolve their situation, help them overcome their challenges? And if you do that, yes, it takes time, to build upon this, but if you do it the right way, and when you're talking about like, okay, what are the systems? So for example, let's say, somebody is a youngster, as you talked about this wonderful gentleman, James, or it's somebody 25-year-old. It's about then working on that Instagram and building that following, seeing who is present on Instagram, who is doing what you're doing. So these would be like just kind of simple thing is like, and what's happening is, since you're coming from a place of authenticity, those are the kind of people you're going to look for. Those are the kind of people you're going to connect with. So some of the basic principles are the same for any phenomenon to happen, for any success to be achieved. So that's the few keys, Connie,
Yeah, Divya, and I think that's so clear. And I know we use this word authentic now, and people are like, oh, I hear that word authentic. But for me, being authentic is no matter when someone sees you or meets you, no matter what the venue is, you're you. So that there's never a pretense or a falseness about you, and that you're always coming from that, I think, helpful place. That's your authentic self, that it's not about me. It's always about who I'm speaking with and how can I really help them in this moment in time, whatever their issue is. Real quick story. We were hit by Sandy in New Jersey a few years ago, and parts of New Jersey were decimated. And I have a friend, her daughter was a hairdresser, and the gentleman who owns the building, I guess, that they cut hair at, it was washed away in the storm. And he's an older
so
gentleman.
sad.
So just tragic. We know so many people locally who lost homes, and they're still rebuilding, which is even more tragic. But this particular gentleman was an older gentleman, and he was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm just checking out. I'm selling the land, and I'm moving on. And my friend said to me, what is my daughter going to do? She doesn't have a job now. And so is it so funny how you see things clearly when you're removed? And I looked at my friend and I said, but she's still a hairdresser. She still has the skill. That didn't wash away. She still has all the clients that she cut their hair. They love her. They choose her to go to every week or every month, whatever it is. Does she have their email and phone numbers? My friend looked at me and said, well, yeah. And I said, well, can't she go on the road, buy scissors, buy hairspray, buy shampoo, and contact your people? I'm sure they would allow her to come into their home. They know her. And until she could find another salon to work at. My friend looked at me and she goes, how did you do that? I said, how did I? And it was hysterical because I go, how did I do what? Like, I had no idea. She goes, how did you see that so clearly? Oh my God, that's a great idea. And ultimately that's what her daughter ended up doing. And it was just me being me, and being me hearing a problem and thinking, oh, what could possibly be a solution to that? And then sharing that without expecting anything, right? You're my friend. I want to help you. I certainly want to help your daughter. But isn't that funny, Divya, when we help people by using maybe our ability with logic, I don't know, but she was stunned. Like, how'd you just do that? And I think you find the same thing with your clients. They look at you like, how did you do that? Right? You understand what I'm saying? I know you do.
Oh, absolutely, Connie. And let's go back to your why, because, here you were very, very specific. And of course, why does not have to be that specific, but you saw that your friend's daughter could not work. And your why was, okay, you want to help, but like, how do you want to help? You want to help her do something with her skill sets so she can go ahead, make some money, create that freedom that she deserves. And because that was behind your logic, you want to say, behind your heart, behind your passion, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to name it, you were able to see very clearly, because you were not only far removed, but because that's what was driving you.
Absolutely.
It's again like, you can have a beautiful car, you can have a Ferrari, but if it's, let's say it runs only on gas, and now you don't have any gas in it, it's not going to run.
Absolutely. It's true. I just love your message. I love your books. I think that the clarity in which you share ideas, this is, I think, Divya, what I like best about you. If I had to pick one thing, there's so many, but your clarity of the message. And I know people are like, is it really that simple? Yeah. It could be. It could be that simple. I think we make things more complicated also than we need to. So everybody listening, we are out of time. But if Divya has shared today, and just her whole lovely demeanor and how she explores things and explains things with such a gentle way, I think, which I find lovely and engaging for myself. Go to Divya's website, which is Divya Parekh, and I don't know if I'm saying your last name correct, Divya, but it's DivyaParekh.com. And if they want to contact you and get a dialogue through your email, go to contact@DivyaParekh.com. And again, that goes directly to your inbox. Correct, Divya?
Yes, you are absolutely right. And Connie, you're so kind. I cannot tell you how kind you are.
Oh, thank you. I love
really
having
appreciate
you.
it.
I love having you. And Divya, one last question. The books, you have several that I think are helpful if people want to even just start by reading your books. Again, to get a flavor of who you are and the kind of insight you have. Can they get them on the website?
Oh yeah, they can go directly on Amazon, and if they Google me up, put Divya Parekh on Amazon, and you'll see a string of books that I've written and co-written with other people just kind of pop up, and you can look at the description and see what speaks to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, yes. I agree. Like, write to Divya. Let her know after reading her books. I think that's the kindest compliment anyone can give an author, right, is giving that feedback. You guys, if you have questions for me, sales related, business related, coaching related, reach out to me directly at Connie@WhitmanAssociates.com. I do respond personally to all emails. Also, my partner and I, for Wisdom Decoded, we are still giving away those free communication style assessments and little reports. We're actually renovating those reports and making them even better. So go to wisdomdecoded.com and download your free communication style assessment. Get some insight on how people perceive you when you're speaking. So just again, helpful information. Divya, thank you so much. A pleasure as always having you on. Most appreciated.
Connie, thank you very much, and thank you, listeners, for joining us. I appreciate it.
A pleasure. I hope you will all join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together how to grow and challenge ourselves and realize that we can embrace change and make it so much easier than we oftentimes think. Like Divya shared today, some simple tips usually work and do the trick. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I wish you all an inspired and empowering week. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.